You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now, to address Nigeria's power supply issues, stakeholders in the energy sector are advocating a decentralized grid system. They revealed that this approach would empower communities to generate their electricity, reducing their reliance on the national grid. The decentralized grid system, which utilizes renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power, is expected to provide efficient and reliable electricity distribution to both rural and urban areas. Stakeholders believe that this system will not only enhance power supply, but also create jobs and stimulate economic growth. Joining us via Zoom from Jos is Adetayo Adegbinle, the Executive Director of Power Up Nigeria and an advocate for power sector policy. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast, Mr. Adegbinle. Stakeholders argue that, they argue that decentralizing the grid could increase efficiency and reliability, create jobs, and also make you, focus directly on what you can do for yourself within your own enclave. But help us understand this concept of decentralization of the power sector. What exactly does it really entail, for the common man on the street?
All right. I think one thing that we need to first of all clear out is the definition of what decentralizing the grid actually means, and what are the implications of the things of the policies that we are asking for. All this quest for decentralizing of the grid comes to the fore because of the failures of the power grid. But the truth about it is that there is no nation without a good grid system, national grid system, in whatever configuration that it is. And for us to have cheap supply, it's best we empower and enable our grid to work to its maximum capacity. Unfortunately, because of the failures of this grid, a lot of people have been asking for going off grid. But of course, all these things also have its implications, and it is not positive for the national grid. It's not positive for the pockets of the average Nigerian, that will be paying for the electricity that will be coming through it. The concept, now, when we're talking about the concept of decentralization, there are many things that are to be considered. We have the grid itself, that some are saying that we should decentralize, in that we should create more control points, so that because the grid goes down in Akwa Ibom, for instance, or it goes down in Shiroro, it does not pull down the whole of the northern part of Nigeria. That is an engineering concept that we need to look at how we can isolate each region of the national grid. Now, the other concept that I have seen coming up recently is people pushing for a lot of off-grid solutions like solar powers, in remote locations where the grid does not necessarily go to or has not gone to. While this might be a short-term relief for the people that are not having power supply in those areas, it is also very pertinent for us to understand that it is not a silver bullet in itself, because doing those mini grids here and there, doing solar panels here or solar farms here, or doing what's it called, wind here and there, also comes at a cost that needs to be, there's an investment that is going to go into it, and at what cost, and what's the payback period for this investment. These are the, these are the issues, or these are the main talking points that we need to look at when we are pushing for all this kind of decentralized grid that some people are also asking for.
But in pushing for all of these things, is it not a solution to the lingering collapse of the national grid and the power outages we've experienced so far? Because from your discussions and from what you have said, it seems that it's not, there's no positivity coming from the decentralizing the national grid.
No. Don't get me wrong. I've not said there is no positivity coming from it. What I've only asked is, have we counted the costs? What is the cost of investment? Why has it been difficult? I mean, if you look at the figures, unfortunately, I've not kept track of the investment that has gone into off-grid recently. But one of the latest data that is out there is about $750 million that has been dedicated to going off-grid. And I keep asking, if we put this $750 million World Bank loan into developing our national grid, into making sure that the national grid is resilient, into making sure that the national grid is able to deliver, higher capacity to consumers, wouldn't we be better off than saying we are doing? I mean, look at our landscape is filled with all sorts of projects. But you see, we are talking about sustainability. How many years do you think those projects will function before they become obsolete? The technology itself that is deployed will become obsolete. I've not heard of technology on national grid becoming obsolete. The only problem we've had is more of a people problem. It's more of people not, projects that are designed not functioning as they have been designed to. And this is as a fault of the people that are behind the design or that are supposed to release money for the project.
That's right.
So I'm not saying it's not negativity, don't get me wrong. But the question is, have we counted the costs of saying you want to go, want to decentralize, everybody wants to go in their part and everything? It comes at the cost, and which goes much, much higher, in another 20 years, what we'll be talking about.
Sorry, Tayo, if you're saying it comes at a cost, for many Nigerians who are used to using generators and using fuel, do you think they will not want to take on that cost when there's a lack?
I like the fact that you are bringing up the issue of generator here and the cost of running that generator. First comparison, the national grid to the generator. Of course, we all know the national grid is much, much cheaper. I mean, almost like 20% cheaper. I mean, more of is what you spend on the grid compared to what you spend to run your generator. It's the same thing we are talking about. Generator is a form of decentralized energy. That is the fact. That is the fact I'm trying to point out. Okay. So the question is this: the generator you bought 20 years ago, how many of them are still functioning today? Do you get? So we need to seriously sit down and consider. There's a reason why in the engineering world they built the national grid, and there is no nation in the world today that does not have their national grid. That is the backbone of any development. That is where everything is connected to. That's where you can get cheaper energy. That's where you can get sustainability. I'm talking about, our national grid has been on for how many years? I'm talking about over 50 years.
Well, Mr. Adetayo, if you look at, comparing other countries now, if you look at India, South Africa, which prides itself with, over 40,000 megawatts, right, of power. And then India, they've actually adopted partial decentralization models to improve electricity distribution. So what lesson do you think we can learn from these countries?
No. Don't mix this thing up, please. Don't mix it up. Even the South Africa that you just mentioned, as we speak, they run their national grid.
I'm just saying, the question, you didn't allow me to finish my question. The question I'm actually driving at is what lesson can we learn from them in order to tailor it towards our own, our own needs, towards the approach of decentralization. That's the point I was trying to make.
All right, let me. You see, that's the point. We cannot follow South Africa because South Africa is not decentralizing the way we are conceptualizing it here. The India that you mentioned, right? They are also not centralizing. Actually, India they have their own national grid. It's only at the administration level that is devolved into states. In the US, there are about 3 grids in the US, right? But they are also connected to each other. I don't know if you understand. It's not as if we are isolating Ikosiketsu and we are building a solar plant or a solar farm to power Ikosiketsu. Then we now go to Shangisha or we go to Magodu and set up another one. No. All these things, like I keep saying, you see, the reason why the grid was originally designed was so that it can bring efficiency. Now that it doesn't work like to design in Nigeria, the question we should actually be asking ourselves is why is our grid not working to design? It's not now to not continue. Funny enough, I am one of those I've always said that the national grid should be decentralized, but not in the model that are being pushed today. Because I keep looking at it. As I mentioned earlier, recently, I mean, I'm sure you're a news person, so you know recently that the whole of the northern part of Nigeria, near you leave Abuja, were out of power supply because there was vandalism somewhere around Shiroro, and another line that was coming from Benue Apia went down. And it affected almost 11 or 12 states up north. So what we are saying in effect is, why can't you isolate? I mean, the engineers know what I'm talking about. They understand what I'm talking about. We can isolate each different part of the grid, right? So that when we have such disaster in one end of the grid, it does not affect the other. Now, that is my idea, and that's what I would have preferred that we interrogate further. Instead of saying you want to create a grid for, how would I put it? You want to create solar, what's the capacity of the solar farm that you want to even create? How are you going to generate? Even if you create a solar farm in, say, Shaki, in your state, how do you get the power down to Ibadan?
Okay, so, Tayo, for you now, what model of decentralization will be appropriate?
Well, we have a national grid that has been having issues recently. Who are those that are, doing the investigation? Who are those that are writing a report on what causes the failure of the national grid? That's number one. What we should be looking at is making sure that our national grid, if you can do 40,000 megawatts that South Africa is doing, most of this conversation that we're having, we won't be having it today. Trust me. So what are we doing to enable and to empower the national grid to be stronger, to be efficient and to work efficiently so that Nigerians can have cheaper power, cheaper sources of energy? Then we cannot start talking about other things that comes on it, like industrialization, like supplying powers, the idea of doing off-grid makes sense in locations where the grid does not supply. I won't argue that. Nobody's arguing that. And I think that should have been the focus, or that would have been the focus of agencies like the REA, that's the Rural Electrification Agency, which I even think by now should have been, devolved into state level so that states can take up also all of those kind of south please. But our focus should have been one, how do we make our grid more efficient? When I say decentralize our national grid, it's not to decentralize our supply or sources or whatever. Create a national grid that is strong enough to take 40,000 megawatts. Let's use South Africa as our base. Then we can start developing and add value, have cheaper electricity, for instance, and add value to the national grid itself and to Nigeria's economy.
Interesting stuff. So if you now look at it, I know in the course of a conversation we mentioned renewable energy. Do you think decentralization and renewable energy, can go hand in hand in adopting this drive? This power decentralization drive. Do you think they can actually go hand in hand? I need to understand that point.
Absolutely. What we should be looking at is an integrated electricity policy. So for instance, we have the what's it called? We had a number of policies that spoke to that. Actually, I think by 2025, our policy was supposed to 35% of renewable energies to the national grid. So yes, it's supposed to be integrated. It's supposed to be both ways. So as we're developing the national grid, we're also developing the off-grid. But there is no way you can do all at once, or there's no way you can do one instead of the other. It has to be integrated. So yes, absolutely, they have to work hand in hand to deliver to the idea that we started with. Let me speak to the examples of Germany. The example that we have from Germany. Germany is one country that wanted to do what we think we want to do now. Going off grid, powering everywhere with renewable energy. But we have seen the result of a place like Germany. Now, a lot of Nigerians don't, or a lot of our policy people in Nigeria don't put into recognition is that Germany does not have a source of energy the way we have. We have gas, we have coal, we have all those things in abundance. Germany does not have all those kind of things. And Germany, it was at the mercy of Russia. We are going to geopolitical issue now.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that determine your policy and your policy drive. But guess what? Because Germany has shut down their nuclear power plant, they shut down their gas power plant, they shut down their coal power plant. Guess what is happening in Germany now? The cost of energy has risen. I'm sure if you also monitor the news recently, you will hear that Volkswagen, one of the biggest factories in Germany, they are shutting down because of energy. Because of they are not able to sustain, their factories running on high expensive energy. So why do we think such a country or such a policy will be, a perfect example for follow?
Okay, so if you now look at it, for ordinary Nigerians, all of these things we're talking about, they do not care. They are not worried. But what they are worried about is their own concern is affordability and accessibility. So in that wise, how would a decentralized grid system address these concerns, particularly for low-income households?
If we are looking at affordability, there is no other source of energy that is cheaper than grid energy. So you cannot, we cannot speak to, when we are paying about 70 naira on the grid energy, if you are going on even gas, if you are going to gas power plants by yourself, you are doing IPP, we are doing about 120, 140 then, not that talk of solar. So affordability, there is still no other energy source that is cheaper or that's going to be cheaper than national grid. What we should push our policymakers to focus on is how to ensure that we have availability of energy on the grid so that a lot more of Nigerians will have access to that energy and at a cheaper cost. That fact, funny enough, there is a research that is ongoing. The last few days, but I'm not at liberty to speak to the details of it. But we looked at Pakistan, we've looked at India, we've looked at Germany, we've looked at UK, we've looked at the US, we've looked at South Africa as case studies for most of these things. The focus should be how do we get more energy on the grid? When we have enough on the grid, trust me, we can now start talking about all other technicalities.
All right. So in all of these things now, what more can we do? Because it seems like the national grid, the collapse has become really, really frequent. And in order to get constant power, what can the government do? What more can the government do for us to have constant electricity? Looking at the fact that you're saying that power from the grid is way cheaper.
Okay, so sorry, Mr. Adetayo, before you answer that question, we just quickly need to go on a break, and then when we come back, we'll take it up from what we're leaving off. Just stay with us on TVC Breakfast. We'll be right back in HFA. Thanks for staying with us here on TVC Breakfast. We've been talking about the energy sector, especially in the advocacy for a decentralized grid system. And we've been speaking with the Executive Director of Power Up Nigeria and an advocate for power sector policy, Adetayo Adegbinle, who is actually giving different opinions regarding this, but particularly how we are able to achieve this. Theophilus, you asked me a question about, could you quickly repeat the question?
Yes, I asked the question about what the government can do more, looking at the fact that we have had constant issues of national grid collapse. What more can the government do, seeing that we've established that power from the national grid is way cheaper than having alternative source of power?
Well, Theophilus, the interesting part of the question you're asking me, let me tell you, I've been running away from having any public appearance because at the point you start sounding like a broken record. If you didn't plant, if you didn't plant corn, you cannot, when your mates are reaping corn or maize, you cannot now go to the farm and want to harvest the same maize like your mates. You see, we started having these constant issues on the grid since I think September last year. Prior to September last year, we went over 400 days. In fact, it was celebrated over 400 days without over 400 days, over 400 days without grid disturbances or any grid collapse. And all of a sudden in September, it started coming up. Now, those that are following the history, I mean, if you follow the history of the recent last 1 year plus, you recall that the first one that happened, I think there was a one fire incident in Browning Kirby, and the minister said, "Oh, we are going to send DSS to investigate and stuff." The media never went back to the minister to ask him what was the result of that investigation. He himself openly said, "Oh, it was a sabotage." Until we speak till today, he never mentioned who sabotaged what the result of the investigation was, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that for me, it's I am, like I said, I'm trying to avoid having some of these conversations, like especially publicly like this. Those, for me, let us start from that. Let's start the investigation from that. Let's start torchlighting. I'm going to use that word. Let's start torchlighting from there and check along the line. Then it became a regular occurrence. Did you ever hear that? I mean, at the point they started blaming insecurity and stuff. So what I will say is this: number one, what policy has this government put in place since they came into power to ensure or to even give confidence to investors for them to want to put their money into the power sector? We've been promised meters since they came on board. The first thing they did was to suspend the NMMP meter that the last administration put into place, right? Yeah, we understand that the phase zero had some issues, but as we speak today, even against our advice to not issue the contracts to the Chinese, we have local meter manufacturers. If you don't patronize them, there is no way they're going to be able to even improve the quality or to start doing some new things locally and stuff like that. You went against those advice and still issued the World Bank loan that.
Okay, Mr. Adetayo, very quickly, we can always X-ray what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and all of that. But because we have very limited time, just about 2 minutes to end of this conversation. Right. So for the public and policymakers that are actually probably watching us as we speak, what key steps or actions would you recommend for Nigeria as we talk about this decentralization of the electricity, the power grid, all of the advocacies that you're also standing up on very quickly?
One of the issues that I know the regulators have tried to address, recently, is to move us to cost-reflective tariff, which is a good idea. Now it can encourage the investors to come in with their funds to say, okay, you can generate because there's revenue assurance from the discos. We need to do metering, 100% metering. We need to target it immediately so that the energy that we generate can be accounted for and can be paid back, and the DENCOs will have their money, all the market operators will have their money. Then anybody that wants to come in with their money, we have the confidence to say, okay, you know what? If I put this money to the Nigerian power sector, we need a policy. I can recover that money over this period of time. We need a policy that strongly speaks to that and adhere to it without, being political or being playful about it. Then we have the serious power sector market that we cannot develop on it.
Interesting stuff. Executive Director of Power Up Nigeria and advocate for power sector policy, Adetayo Adegbimile. Thank you so much for your keenness of insight on this very crucial matter. Thank you.